seria a relação dele com as acusadas?
Ele era o banco delas.
Quanto tempo depois a Bruna foi ouvida no momento em que a Yasmin já estava presa?
Falei que hoje também ela foi ouvida antes da Yasmin, depois a Yasmin depois foi interrogada, e depois a Bruna foi ouvida só mais uma vez no dia da prisão dela.
Tá. Isso tudo na presença de um advogado?
Já falei isso, sim, senhor.
Não, falou referente a Yasmin, não referente a Bruna.
Falei também. A Bruna foi ouvida com um advogado.
E quem que chamou esse advogado?
Foi um policial. Então, se a Defensoria Pública atendesse em delegacia, não precisava chamar advogado. Eles não atendem. E eu repito aqui, não tem advogado de estimação. Chama um advogado que se preste aí na delegacia de polícia. Não veio nada com isso.
Da minha parte, tranquilo.
Delegado Antônio, muito bom dia. Me chamo Rafael também. Estamos aqui na representação da Bruna, delegado. Eu lhe pergunto, a maioria das questões que nós tínhamos interesse em ouvi-lo foram essencialmente dirimidas ali pelos questionamentos tanto do Dr. Gilberto na abertura quanto do Ministério Público. Doutor Antônio, para nós entendermos alguns pontos bem específicos relacionados especificamente, especialmente em relação à Bruna aqui. O casal foi até a delegacia na sexta-feira para informar ou registrar...
Quinta-feira.
Na quinta-feira. Na quinta-feira, dia 29.
Por volta das 20 horas.
Certo. Naquele momento, delegado, elas chegaram e eu li o inquérito, eu vi os depoimentos de todos os seus policiais aqui, não obstante termos assumido o processo recentemente, mas... E os relatos, eles são no sentido de que elas não conseguiram registrar naquele momento porque havia um problema de sistema. A Yasmin chegou a ser presa naquele mesmo momento, na quinta-feira à noite, quando ela foi até a delegacia? O senhor pode nos falar sobre
depois
isso?
de todas essas diligências que foram no apartamento, foi apresentada na delegacia de polícia, eu chego na delegacia, começo a ouvir a história e tal, ela é autuada em flagrante, a Yasmin.
Naquele mesmo contexto, no segmento ali.
Entre quinta e sexta, entre quinta de... Toda a gente está falando assim, ó. Quinta, 21, 22, 23, 20, meia-noite, uma sexta-feira, 1h da manhã, 2h da manhã, tipo assim.
Contínuo. Entrou a madrugada de sexta-feira, entendi. Nesse contexto, delegado, então, saíram da delegacia, foram até o apartamento, e, enfim, levantaram-se todas aquelas informações, voltaram e Yasmin presa em flagrante delito. A Bruna, nesse momento, delegado, ela estava detida também ou estava na delegacia sem qualquer restrição de liberdade?
Eu entrei, ela estava do lado da porta ali, eu estava andando, eu estava sentada ali, ela estava... Tanto que eu não, quando eu cheguei, fui me prestar a situação, eu não sabia cadê a Bruna? Não é aquela que estava ali.
Sim, o senhor nem se deu conta que era ela que estava ali. Mas ela estava ali porque ficou ou porque havia determinação para que ela não saísse da delegacia?
Não, que estava nessa situação, quando a brigada apresenta, tem uma situação que a gente vai montando.
Sim.
Que nem eu digo, eu já referi que tem uma situação que pode estar com 5, 6 apresentados, detidos pela brigada militar, e no final eu vejo que o cara não tem nada a ver, o cara está passando ali e foi trazido junto.
Sim.
O
senhor faz a avaliação.
Faço a avaliação e...
Quanto à pertinência.
E ela foi vista como testemunha.
A decisão, delegado, de prender apenas a Yasmin naquele momento e não prender a Bruna em flagrante foi sua, então, como autoridade policial naquele momento. Porque naquele momento o senhor entendeu que não havia elementos. E...
Doutor, não que eu descartasse. Eu acreditava até que se eu investigasse, podia surgir algo. Tanto que eu tive situações que eu mandei o cara sair andando de delegacia. Eu não tenho que prender para agradar alguém ali ou para dizer que a pessoa está presa. As pessoas às vezes confundem que, tipo assim, o fulano está solto, está impune. Não. Eu não tenho essa pressa. Eu tenho que entender a história. Se eu não prendo ele agora, eu prendo ele temporariamente, eu prendo preventivamente na frente. Naquele momento ali, eu não tinha o suficiente. E que eu achei que fosse o suficiente, depois já ouvindo os vídeos e tal, que eu comecei e foi a investigação adiante.
E naquele momento, a Bruna chegou a ser ouvida naquela mesma madrugada ali, nesse contexto contínuo?
Não, nem entrou na madrugada, mas não... Em tese, não sei se demorou muito, assim, foi É que estava bem pesado, a gente ainda dividia assim, a questão de os bombeiros estarem procurando, da história estar sendo... Foi uma madrugada horrível. A gente não...
Eu imagino.
Foi uma coisa assim que eu não podia desligar essa questão de se o Miguel estivesse vivo. Entendeu?
Que era prioridade, entendo. E a Bruna, delegado, a maioria dos policiais que atuaram ali no inquérito, principalmente nessa fase inicial do APF, há quem diga que o APF é um momento crucial, né? Está tudo muito quente ali. Todos eles relataram que a Bruna, em algum momento, mencionava Mala, Rio, Miguel. O senhor pode nos esclarecer melhor, diante da sua percepção, o senhor que estava ali, que estava chefiando os seus policiais ali?
Isso aí, quando
como é que foi que aconteceu isso?
Eu estava sobreaviso, não foi por telefone no começo, eles passaram, tipo assim, foi a partir desses elementos que ela passou, meio desconexos, meio largados ao vento, que sim veio à tona essa história do Miguel no Rio. Foi daí que a Bruna foi contar, enfim, que os brigadianos tomaram conhecimento que o Miguel tinha chegado no Rio. Entendeu?
Entendi. Na verdade, a diretriz, então, para calçar essa linha investigativa foi a partir dessas palavras, como nas suas palavras, desconexas, que a Bruna mencionou naquele momento, naquele momento tenso ali.
Isso.
Perfeito. E, delegado, o senhor, um profissional de ampla experiência, não só na delegacia, como o senhor mesmo relatou aqui, várias outras funções na área do direito, amplo conhecedor, e demonstra isso na sua fala, evidentemente. O senhor atribui essa manifestação da Bruna desconexa ao quê?
Doutor, é isso que eu falo. Claro, nós vamos discordar nesse ponto, defesa, e eu não sou acusação, colhi a prova, e que eu acho que essa minha conclusão está calcada assim na conclusão dos peritos do Instituto Psiquiátrico Forense, que ela finge essas situações. Né? Mas daí a gente vai entrar num debate, eu acho que ela finge essas situações. Que ela se colocou em situações assim para diminuir a participação dela, ou, né, que ela presenciou, doutor. Porque as testemunhas foram ouvidas, foram 27 pessoas ouvidas durante a investigação, não tinha a Bruna como uma pessoa incapaz. A Bruna conversava com os outros, tipo, falava de boa sobre videogame, conversava. Não é tido assim, a Bruna teve lá na casa da Yasmin, lá em Paraí, lá não... Bruna ninguém via a Bruna como louca, como 13, como 18. Entendeu? No meu entendimento, calcado, repito, em cima de um laudo psiquiátrico forense, para mim era fingimento.
E o senhor chegou a apurar, doutor, ou tem alguma ideia das razões pelas quais ela fingiu dessa... Por que ela falou em Miguel, falou em Mala, falou em Rio? Porque, a princípio, pelo que eu entendi, doutor, o senhor tem a liberdade para falar, se a Bruna não menciona essas palavras desconexas que levam a polícia a essa conclusão, possivelmente, quem sabe, não seria pautada a hipótese do Rio ou da desova do corpo do Miguel nesses termos.
E se ela não estivesse indo na delegacia de polícia também,
exatamente,
foi a decisão da Yasmin, quem é que sentia falta do Miguel? Foram decisões erradas. Se tu nunca matou antes, tu não tem experiência, né? Tu não sabe como sair de uma situação. Para Yasmin, ela narrou isso para mim, que ela entendeu que se ela registrasse a ocorrência policial, não iam desconfiar dela. Ela acabou se enrolando. Como o casal mostrou essa frieza, chamou a atenção da polícia. Então, todas as decisões que elas tomaram acabaram levando elas num contexto que veio tudo à tona. Se elas tivessem ficado em casa, quem é que teria dado a falta do Miguel?
O senhor se lembra, delegado, evidente que está no processo, sei que é importante nós fazermos essa prova aqui, nesse momento. A Bruna, a Yasmin, aliás, foi presa na quinta-feira à noite, quando foi até a delegacia. Quantos dias levaram até o senhor ter o deferimento pelo juízo da prisão temporária da Bruna?
Foi sábado ou domingo, doutor. Eu acho que a Bruna foi presa domingo.
No domingo. 4 dias depois. O senhor...
Não, porque, doutor, eu entrego ao PF, nós estamos quinta de noite.
Sim.
Eu entrego ao PF sexta, tipo assim, eu acho quase nas 24 horas dele já. Porque tá chegando gente na delegacia, porque eu tô indo atrás, porque eu instruo a PF com a oitiva da mãe da Yasmin, que eu instruo a PF com a oitiva da dona da casa lá onde depositaram a mala, e nós estamos instruindo a PF, então estamos montando a PF, estamos vendo o que a gente está conseguindo. Tem 24 horas para manter uma PF. Remeto a PF, então sexta-feira, não sei que horário, remeto a PF na sexta-feira, de tarde, com certeza. Os analisa, homologa a PF da queda preventiva. O juiz não analisa, não era o doutor Gilberto, era um plantonista. O juiz não analisa a questão do telefone celular.
Que já havia representação naquele momento.
Passa batido. Eu faço contato, o juiz analisa, defere. Então, esse deferimento deve ter sido no sábado. A gente hoje foi sábado de manhã. Foi sábado de manhã, eu escuto o psiquiatra, para saber mesmo eu não ia pedir a prisão. E assim, ó, o que eu pedi? Instalação de incidente de sanidade mental. Para que não houvesse dúvida da sanidade mental dela. Eu tive esse cuidado para responder isso, que é a responsabilidade dela. Se o perito dissesse, não, ela não podia, beleza. Ela não podia, tá tranquilo. Entendeu? Então, a temporada ia ter saído, doutor, do sábado para domingo de manhã, e eu prendi ela domingo, turno eu não vou lembrar.
O senhor mencionou num momento
Mas
anterior...
foi nesse período, doutor, entendeu? Tudo aconteceu nesse dia.
Nesse fato contínuo. O senhor mencionou que prendeu ela na policlínica, lá em Bé mesmo,
Isso.
na mesma cidade. Ela estava na mesma cidade. Ela saiu da delegacia, ela foi viver aonde, doutor?
Não, isso que eu falei, doutor. Ela queria botar o apartamento, que ela queria cuidar do gato. Primeiro, eu não vou deixar ela no apartamento, porque eu quero periciar melhor o apartamento.
Exato.
A gente não consegue contato com ninguém da família dela. Eu acho que eu ligo um parente dela. Eu atendo na delegacia de polícia, eu acho que liga alguém. E... não, vão buscar. Eu não posso deixar a mulher também, porque já estão apolvorosa. Eu estou na sexta de manhã, eu estou na sexta quase, eu acho, sexta de tarde já. Eu vou deixar a mulher aqui, tá, vai... E eu não sei a responsabilidade dela também, entendeu? Assim, tá uma situação. Eu peço para o prefeito acolhê-la pela assistência social. E fazer encaminhamento dela para avaliação, esse tipo de coisa assim. E aí que parece que ela dorme de sexta para sábado, então isso que acontece, sexta para sábado ela dorme no hotel custeado pela prefeitura, dessas pessoas que a prefeitura pode acolher, entendeu? E que eu tinha, doutora Real, eu tinha um medo que como é que se diz, batesse nela, como é que se diz?
Que batesse o quê, doutor? Desculpa, não.
Que linchasse ela.
Sim, que pegassem ela e fizessem...
Sim, porque...
Entendi, linchassem.
Aquela história de manhã tão na mídia toda e, tipo, tinha medo que linchasse ela. E daí que ela vai parar na policlínica porque ela disse que tomou shampoo para tentar se matar. Aí ela está na policlínica. E está lá em observação.
Ela estava internada lá, estava parada
Ela estava em
lá.
observação. Os 2 médicos são ouvidos, estavam internados.
Então, para nós entendermos, doutor, a iniciativa sua como autoridade policial, ela partiu, a princípio, para fins de representar pela prisão temporária da Bruna, a partir do acesso aos telefones celulares.
Sim.
Em função, basicamente, um vídeo que todos conhecem, um vídeo...
Aquilo ali foi o start.
Foi o start para prendê-la.
Mas não repito, não, que eu não tivesse... Eu não descartei a participação dela. No momento de atuação em flagrante, eu não tinha. Até porque, pela versão que elas apresentavam, autor em flagrante é Yasmin.
Entendi. Doutor, mais uma pergunta, e quem sabe seja a última aqui. Até me admira, e devo dizer, doutor, dificilmente eu vejo um delegado preocupar-se com isso, com a questão da sanidade mental. Tomar iniciativa.
Não, doutor, mas assim, eu repito, doutor, assim, não tem nada por trás disso, doutor.
Não é isso que eu estou dizendo, doutor.
Eu sou delegado sério com relação, tipo,
eu sei disso.
Havia, sim, um risco dela ser inchada.
Eu sei disso.
O senhor não tem noção que virou, em Bel, que virou, quando, cara, mataram uma criança e jogaram no rio, cara, todos os canais de televisão, todo mundo, se botasse ela na rua...
Certamente não estaria
aqui.
Na
reprodução do local do crime, doutor, já queriam bater nela.
Mas eu lhe pergunto o seguinte, doutor, até, e devo dizer, registro, não é o primeiro processo que nós estamos aqui, que tudo nasceu da sua presidência, do seu trabalho, é incontestável. Eu lhe pergunto o seguinte, o que lhe levou a tomar a iniciativa de fazer, de requerer o exame de insanidade nela? Qual foi o ponto, se o senhor se recordar? Qual foi o ponto? Qual foi o momento, a chave que lhe levou a fazer isso?
Porque eu cheguei na delegacia, ela era tratada meio assim, falaram, ele é 18. Então, se ela é, se tem qualquer dúvida, vamos avaliar. E eu queria ter certeza, doutor, tipo, e eu sabia também, se eu não tomasse a iniciativa agora, lá na metade do processo, ele é louca, para o processo em relação a ela. Eu também tive esse cuidado em relação até o andamento da própria investigação. E eu tenho que saber da saída, doutor. Ela responde ou não responde por isso. O que ela fala, eu levo em credibilidade ou eu não levo?
E o senhor teve, delegado, acesso a ela? O senhor conversou com ela quando tomou essa decisão? Ou o senhor tomou essa decisão com base nisso que disseram na delegacia? Ela é 18, ela é isso?
Então, doutor, assim, eu mal falei com ela. Entendeu? Assim, ó, a oitiva dela mesmo, eu delimitei assim, vamos ouvir nesse sentido. Ela sentou com a policial e passou sentar com o policial ali um tempão. Falando detalhe, entendeu? Botando no papel aquilo ali.
Sim. Delegado, a Bruna ela deu pelo menos dois depoimentos nessa fase inquisitorial aí na delegacia, né? Foram 2 depoimentos naquele momento e depois quando ela foi presa. O senhor estava presente nessas oitivas? O senhor estava pessoalmente lá?
Doutor, é assim, ó. Estou dando toda essa questão do APF. O que eu tenho o hábito de fazer? Não é prático. O que pode acontecer? Acho que nisso dela foi isso aí. Eu começo a ouvi-la, tu vai falar sobre isso, começo a ouvir, ela me contando a história. E assim, ó, que é diferente, hoje é gravado um depoimento, mas não sei se vocês recordam, eu sou mais velho. Quando o escrivão tinha que passar. Uma coisa é aquele depoimento que tu está me narrando tudo, tu está só agora eu vou passar o papel.
Sim.
Nesse momento eu não fico... reproduzo o papel, aquilo que a pessoa está te dizendo. Eu saio e estou fazendo outra coisa, estou tocando um flagrante. Entendeu? Nessa hora o escrivão fica com a testemunha do suspeito, reproduzindo o que a pessoa está dizendo. Mas eu estou ali, eu estava no cartório, no gabinete, no cartório ao lado já estava, entendeu? E isso foi com Yasmin, ficou no gabinete, prova, ficou eu, a Yasmin e o doutor Bruno, o tempo inteiro.
Sim, entendi. E, delegado...
Eu sei, doutor, assim, é importante dizer que às vezes tem comentários em relação à polícia e tal. Doutor, o cara está preso, eu entrevisto. Quer falar, advogado. Advogado chega, entrevista. Não mostra nada fora disso, entendeu? Eu respeito isso.
Não, até o meu viés da pergunta, doutor, não era nem para te questionar o trabalho. O que eu queria
doutor,
lhe
assim,
perguntar...
às vezes pode dizer que colheu sem presença,
Sim, entendo.
Ou mandou falar isso, ou não leu. Não, doutor, não.
O que eu queria, na verdade, perguntar ao senhor, a partir desse viés, é o seguinte. O senhor, como delegado experiente que é, o senhor entendeu que o que a Bruna disse... Porque nós temos aqui uma linha do tempo do que ela vem dizendo no processo. E o que está posto, doutor. Não se vem aqui para fazer mágica, né? O que está posto, está posto. O senhor sentiu que o depoimento da Bruna tinha credibilidade?
Era crível. E me servia. Eu tenho que confrontar com outros elementos. E o que mais pesou, doutor, em relação à minha conclusão de que ela se retira muito e ela não é assim, não se põe, repito, nessa forma passiva e espectadora, é como ela fala em relação ao Miguel e como ela se comporta em relação ao Miguel. É isso.
Sim, entendo. São quadros, né, diferentes. O senhor se recorda, delegado, quem eram os policiais que estavam na oitiva da Bruna naquela ocasião?
A policial que mais participou do caso foi a escrivã Nathiele, né? A escrivã Caroline também tem oitivas. E estava não sei se foi a Nathiele que fez a oitiva. E tem também o inspetor Eros ouviu os brigadianos. Tá em cada depoimento está o policial que
o que está lá é o que de fato está lá. Não é só uma supervisão, ele está presencial lá.
Não, policial sim.
Entendi.
E, doutor, sim, foi perguntado, tem cada um numa sala, cada um no ambiente. Não é assim, ouvir todo mundo junto, cada um fala na frente do outro. Comigo isso aí não existe.
É preservado, né, doutor?
Sim.
Vocês querem fazer mais algum questionamento? Delegado Antônio, muito obrigado pela atenção e disponibilidade. Sem mais, doutor Gilberto, obrigado.
Os jurados querem alguma pergunta para a testemunha? Muito obrigado, está pronto o seu depoimento.
Queria me desculpar, senhor leitador. Só inicial ali foi.
O senhor está liberado aqui. Muito obrigado, senhor.
Tá.
Nós vamos avaliar agora se nós vamos ouvir outra testemunha, 11 e 20. Previsão de tempo. Nós vamos interromper o almoço para evitar que atropele. São 12 minutos, depois pode levar de cerca de 1 hora. Nós vamos interromper o almoço. E eu lembro para os jurados que não poderão conversar sobre o processo durante o intervalo, serão acompanhados pelo oficial de justiça. Tá? Então, vou suspender, então, até por 1 hora, tá? 1h30. Tá?
Desperte para a revolução doce. Truvia, o adoçante feito da folha de estar.
Hey everyone, welcome to Simply Learn. Today we will be learning the project management field course. We will begin this video by talking about what project management is, project planning, how can it be done using Excel, cost, quality, communication and other forms of management, the best project managing tools, how you can prepare for the PMP exam, the role of a project manager, interview questions and much more. By the time we are done, you'll be well versed with some of the most important concepts in project management. For this training with me, we have our specialists Chandra MR and Ishan. Together, they will take you through these different topics. So, let's start by answering our first question. What is project management? So before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you can never miss an update from Simply Learn.
Hi, welcome to Project Management tutorial from Simply Learn. I am Chandra MR, a professional consultant and coach in best practices related to project management and IT service management. Today, as part of this tutorial, we are going to learn the basic understanding about the project management and the required knowledge for a project manager to become successful in managing projects. So as part of this tutorial, we are going to look at what is project management, what is project, components of project management, project life cycle, key focus areas in project management, job roles in project management, and project management certifications. So what is project management? Now, as defined in PMI's PMBOK, project management is application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. So every project will have an objective to accomplish. Similarly, the objective of project management is to make the final deliverables in a finite time and budget. This involves having clear understanding about the deliverables of the project, required resources for the project, resource in terms of human resources, technical resources, financial resources, etc. Project manager should have a full picture of those aspects. We can call it project manager should have a full view about a project and what is that this project has to accomplish. That objective should be clear. So as part of project management, the 6 constraints which project manager should look at are scope, time, quality, cost, risk and resources. So each of these areas has very important role to play in project management. The clarity in scope, the clarity in terms of schedule within which the project has to be delivered, the cost, what it incurs to that particular project. Once it is finalized, one cannot vary, one cannot change without any proper approvals. Similar to that, we have quality management specifications what are defined. Project output will be accordingly achieved. Risk. Every project is taken up for a specific reason by organization. So organization should assess the risk associated with the project. And similarly, as project progresses, various different risks has to be identified, like risk related to project management, risk related to technology area, risk related to resources, risk related to financial things. So broadly, risk management plays a very important role. So there will be something called contingency reserve kept for a identified risk above the cost what is estimated for its deliverables from the project. So every project require resources. Resources may be in terms of human resources, financial resources, technology resources, environmental resources. So all these resources are used to produce the output of the project. So these resources has to be managed with the sufficient optimization and standardizations required. Now let us understand the definition of a project. So what is a project? PMI defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service or result. The temporary nature of a project indicates that a project has a definite beginning and end. So when I say product, unique product, it means every output, it may be similar products you are producing with the same features and functionality. But the output of every project is unique because it is unique in terms of all the 6 constraints what we just discussed now. Now when I say product, it is very easy for us to visualize. It may be a desktop, it may be a laptop, it may be a car, it may be a machine, etc. But how do I visualize a service? Now project's output is a service. Now it's about building a capability. A project, through a project, a capability can be built to ensure services can be provided. That's what the output of project is, service. For example, if I think about a taxi services, for providing a taxi services, I need a mobile app, I need taxi, I need a server, I need a data center. So all these are various different products and services. Here service example can be internet service. So combination of all the services and products builds the capability for an organizations who can provide the taxi services. So building that capability, we say it is an output of a particular project which is called service. Similarly, results can be improvement of something, improvement in customer satisfaction, increase in some specific objectives or specific results needs to be achieved in performance perspective. So output of every project will be unique product or a service or a result. This we need to clearly understand. So when we say there is a definite beginning and end, every project starts at a certain point in time and ends at certain point in time. So it has a definite beginning and end. That is the reason it is temporary in nature. It is not an ongoing business activity, right? So every project will have a life cycle, a beginning and end. So when it starts till end, until the result or a service or a product which comes as an output of a project life cycle is not ended. So interestingly, in a product life cycle or in a service life cycle, you come across many project life cycles. So one project life cycle means one project is initiated to introduce a product or services. Next project or initiated would be to enhance the capability of a service or a product. Next project initiated after some time is to optimize something. Similarly, at the end of the product life cycle, project is initiated to retire that product or services. So in a given product life cycle, there may be multiple project life cycle. So what is involved in the project life cycle? It involves 5 areas, 5 groups we can call it as. So initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and closure. So when I say initiation, it's all about understanding what is project, giving the basic understanding of the project, collating the details and having key stakeholders identified. Once that is done, one will move towards planning. So here in the initiation, it is very clearly one has to understand is project is worthwhile of doing. So one has to check the feasibility, one has to measure that particular investment is making sense and then confirm, yes, it makes sense to invest. Now next, planning. As we have a basic understanding of, yes, this project has to be done, and a discussion with the key stakeholders have happened. Now that moves towards planning. Now in planning, one will understand the project in entirety. If it is a waterfall approach, one has to have a clear articulation of entire project, a comprehensive details, holistic approach. Now if you're going in a project in an agile way of approach, now in this planning, you may have a big skeleton. As you go in each of the iteration, you may go deep dive into detailed planning if it is an agile approach. So planning provides you the clear insight towards what needs to be done in this project, how it has to be done, and what are the results which can be achieved out of that particular project. So this involves making that a clear blueprint of an project objectives, what we are supposed to achieve. So this will become a reference point throughout the project life cycle. Then execution. As you have a blueprint of the project, as the direction of that project is set, detailing of the project has been made, one will go ahead and execute and implementing it. So execution phase involves the allocation of resources and making the deliverables as required. You acquire resources, you configure a resource, you ensure right resources are acquired. If it is human resource, one has to educate that human resource with the project required knowledge or details, or one has to provide that assignment in such a way that skills of that individuals, what they should have is acquired by those individuals so that deliverables can happen, and they needs to be managed. The entire team needs to be managed. For that, a clear structure has to be created. Similarly, when you do technology resource perspective, those components has to be tested, configured, then integrated, again tested for and check the performances. So collective action of this results in a deliverable during the execution. So as the deliverables are happening in the execution, it is quite obvious project manager has to monitor, review, control that particular deliverable, and also the processes, tools, resources used during the project, even those needs to be monitored so that they are complying to the defined processes. So during monitoring, there may be a deviation one can found. During monitoring, there may be the project is running the way it is required. So in this monitoring phase, it involves an action from project manager to monitor and control the work of the project. So comparing with the blueprint of plan, what is accomplished, what is created during the planning phase of this project, and as the execution happens, monitoring and control is monitoring it and checking is that activities what is being done is according to the plan or not. Similarly, the deliverables which comes as an output of a project are tested thoroughly, whether those have a specific features and functionality, and are they functioning the way it is required. Now project has to be delivered to the scope what is defined. It should not go beyond that or below that. Similarly, the schedule what is made for the project, within that schedule project deliverables needs to be accomplished within the cost what is budgeted for the project. So during the project, project manager may find there are certain deviations which are occurred, there are additional challenges which has come in. So for this reason, one has to ensure continued monitoring as the execution happens and identify those deviation and ensure whenever there is a deviation there is a correction. Whenever there is an additional things coming in, that needs to be considered carefully whether that need to be involved as part of this deliverable or should be taken it separately. So this requires a lot of conversation with all the stakeholders of the project during the entire project life cycle, especially during planning, execution, monitoring and control, since they are not the one which is happening in sequence. So planning can also come back again where there is something which you may require to modify. So you may require to have a change in the blueprint itself by adding that new change which is coming in. So you go back to planning. So planning, execution, monitoring and control are going hand in hand so that project deliverables are happening as needed. Similarly, all the process, work instructions, all those templates what is given are used. One is complying to those requirements. It is very important. And project is done within the scope, schedule and time and the quality metrics defined. Then as the completion of the project happens, as the monitoring and control says, yes, deliverable has happened according to the requirement, then the project moves to the closure. The closure may be closure of a specific project phase, a milestone deliverable or a phasal deliverable, or it can be a deliverable at the end of the project, which is the ultimate deliverable. So processes in closing has to be triggered whenever there is an end of the phase, whenever there is a deliverable to conclude, and also at the end of the project to conclude the entire project. So during the closure, one has to ensure capturing all the details in terms of what is accomplished against what is defined, what went wrong, what went well, what is the learning one has to take to the next level or to next phase or to the next project. And at the same time, a sign off has to be obtained formally and everything should be summarized and have a good handshake with the project stakeholder, mainly a business or customer. And also disseminating of team means you will dismantle the entire team and send them back to their specific units or specialization, and they may get assigned to new project, or if it is a functional, they can go back to their functions to do their functional activities. So that was about entire project life cycle, what happens. Now while doing this, I mentioned there are 6 constraints, that is scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk and resources. So keeping these in mind, one has to ensure project is successful in all aspects. So to become successful, there are a few key areas which has to be looked at. So first 6 key areas are scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, and stakeholders. Now let us look at the scope. What does scope means? Scope is about what needs to be delivered. What is in scope? What is out of the scope? So this refers to all those deliverable scope, all those activity scope. Basically, we speak about two things. One is product scope, that is tested against those defined features and functionalities. Whereas project scope focus on all the activities needs to be done, all those templates which has to be used, all the process which has to be complied with, all that skills which is required to be applied. So it is going as defined. So by doing this activities which is defined as part of project scope, the result, the deliverable will come out, which will be in line with the deliverables, features and as part of product scope. It is very important to ensure entire projects happens within this particular scope. There should not be any deviations from this. Schedule perspective, for that specifications what we have defined for a product and project. So these needs to be done in a specific point in time, means in a specific schedule. There will be start time, end time, right? So one has to plan how long a project would take and what are the deliverables should happen in what sequence, what activities are required to accomplish this. So all these needs to be understood. So while performing the schedule management, one has to look at a specific deliverable at a specific point in time by applying a specific set of activities required. So this will tell you the duration of the project. This will provide you the sequence of project. This will also help you to understand the dependency between one task to another task. This will also help you to understand how the deliverables happen. Third is cost. So as we know, to do any project, it is very essential, is right or wrong. Is that really so much of monetary resources are required for the project? And then after understanding the justification and obtaining the clarity, budget is, monetary resources are allocated and confirmed, approved. Then it will become a budget. That will be a cost baseline. So these estimation, allocation of budget, once it happens, that will become a base, and any deviations from that cannot happen so easily. So any deviations because of additional of scope, that can be set at the economic or monetary value perspective. That is about cost. Now quality, as we know, quality is a very important area which ensures the project is delivered in time with all the specifications defined by using all the methods, means by following all the processes, work instructions, templates, and delivering as needed, where it enables the project to monitor it easily. So basically the requirement of compliance and standardization and optimization is to ensure everyone follows the same steps to do the activity. So what quality management focus is to ensure the intended objectives of a project are achieved. Already there is a definition done in terms of various different practices or processes needs to be followed. Similarly, specification of each of the products are defined, and from that there should not be any deviation. So quality management should focus on ensuring those activities are done as defined. Those deliverables are done according to the specifications what is defined. It is very important that way. So for that there is a layer of quality management. There should be a layer of quality management where auditing or control activities are initiated periodically so that any deviations can be seen easily. And remember, a project manager cannot become part of quality management. Like project manager cannot audit. Project manager should have a team or take the help of a team who can able to do. Mostly the one who is not part of the project is always better. Resources. Now as I mentioned earlier, every project needs resources. It may be human resources, it may be technology resources, it may be any other resources which are required to do the project. So organization acquires resources, configured and then deployed. For example, in a project, you acquire a server, you configure a server, you deploy a server. Technology resource. Human resource is onboarded, recruited, project induction is given. Then at the same time, the skills and capabilities of individuals are according to the requirement of project. That needs to be ensured. And what needs to be delivered and how it has to be delivered should be clear to the particular human resource. So looking at all the aspects of resources to acquire, to build and manage, it is very important to look at the resource management. So this will help in carrying out a specific task in the project in the best possible manner. So interestingly, when I say human resource, always there is a possibility that a conflict can occur. So when I say conflict of interest maybe in terms of what the individuals has to do, conflict in terms of the preferences, in terms of solutions, what they're looking at, conflict in terms of using resources, different opinions, different preferences. Various reasons conflict can come across. So it is very important to project manager to understand this dynamics of human resources and manage those conflicts. Project manager cannot shy away from handling conflicts. Project manager has to hone and resolve those conflicts in the favor of project, not in the favor of any individuals. So there are various techniques to look at resolving conflicts. So that is like compromising, problem solving, smoothing, accommodating. So whichever helps for that project scenario, for the project objectives, that needs to be applied. That technique has to be taken up. So here the resolution is not at the specific individual's preference. It is with the objective of whether projects has any impact. What kind of impact? Positive or negative? If it is negative, no, that's not the direction. The direction should be ensuring project gets that value through this conflict resolution. So project manager should own it. It's an accountability of a project manager. Then as the human resources are acquired, there are 5 stages. Team dynamics are involved. So one has to bring them, then educate them about a project. As the education on the project happens, one has to go and do the job on the floor. That needs to be observed. Means one has to manage by looking at it, and any corrections needs to be done. That needs to be guided. So it is very dynamic thing when it comes to human resources. Similarly, in technology resources, standardization, there is no ambiguity as such, but right resources with the right configurations should be acquired. That is very important. The next, stakeholders. So who can be stakeholders? Every project will have a stakeholder who are internal and external to the project. So the internal stakeholders are those who are part of the project, who are part of the organization, who are part of the customer organization, or part of supplier organization, a computation to my business, means my organization's business. All this we can call it as a stakeholders. Now every stakeholders will have a specific interest, a power, an ability to influence. Now through their position, through their distance from the project, they will get impacted. At the same time, they will also impact the project. Similarly, they influence and they get influenced because of the project. So a project manager should identify all the stakeholders and understand this. What is the kind of stakeholder is this in terms of power, in terms of legitimacy, in terms of influence, in terms of impact? After understanding that, there should be a strategy for handling the stakeholders. How am I going to engage with these stakeholders? It is very important. And accordingly, the engagement should happen, and then stakeholder engagement should resolve in the favor of projects again. So if it is a customer should get the inputs required through review or periodic updates and the engagement required with the customer, so that customer is having up-to-date information about the project. If it is a team, continued monitoring and control and ensuring team delivers the results what is required. So focus of a stakeholder should be in such a way that your strategy should enable project to become successful and get a proper response from the stakeholder, means a supporting engagement. So next few key focus areas to mention is communication, risk, procurement, critical success factors, deliverables, and work breakdown. So this list is not exhaustive. As we deep dive into project, I think you can just keep listing the key focus areas more than this, but whatever we have indicated are the minimum which needs to be looked at. So when I say communication is basically a conversation, exchange of message which happens between two entities. Now whenever we communicate, it is necessary to understand that it has to happen with two individuals or two entities. There should be sender, there should be receiver. In the absence of receiver, if sending is happening, that communication doesn't make any sense. There should be a receiver and there should be an acknowledgement from the receiver. Now this is one of the most ignored area in many of the projects, even though communication happens more often, more frequently. But what people face difficulty in realizing that as they communicate generally, informally, formally, they just take those for granted. Now when you identify the stakeholder, one has to understand what is the communication requirement for those stakeholders. What is that communication? Why is that communication? What is the content of that communication? How frequently we should do that interactions or communications? Intent of that particular communication, action or response from that communication. All this needs to be very, very clear, and this can be articulated. It has to be articulated. So when it is articulated, once there is a picture in terms of what kind of communication has to happen, it is quite obvious there should not be any deviation. from the agreed communications requirements. And whenever there is a need of change to the communication requirements from the stakeholders, that needs to be updated. For this, one has to have a stakeholders identified. So stakeholder management and communication are very closely linked and associated. Engagement with the stakeholder will become successful with an effective communication approaches. Next is risk. So every project which is undertaken by organization, that will have certain amount of risk which organization will evaluate. Similarly, within the project life cycle, lot of risk comes up which would have certain impact to the project. Now, risk refers to, by definition, an uncertain event. It has an uncertainty. An event which is uncertain, and when it occurs, it will have an impact on the project positively or negatively. Now, current scenario in everywhere the projects, what you observe closely, people tend to look at the risk which are threats, that is negative only, but they fail to recognize the risks which are opportunities, the positive risks. So another gap which we see when do the risk management is that is done in the initial phase of the project. As the project is kicked off, someone will do the risk assessment, have a list of risk identified, but unfortunately there is no categorizations for that risk. And how is that going to impact the project? That is not clear. Thirdly, risk management or list of risk are created only once. It is not done repeatedly. So risk identification and analysis and assessment of that risk has to be done throughout the life cycle of a project. Reason being, the risk which looks as a high impact when project is initiated, as the project progresses, the impact levels will vary. Maybe in the mid of the project, the impact may be very high or low. So likewise, the impacts of the risk will vary throughout the project life cycle. It may be positive, it may be negative. So as you identify the stakeholder throughout the project life cycle, as I said, that is also a dynamic. I cannot just have a list of stakeholders and I keep it as it is. I need to update that also regularly. Risk identification, assessment and analysis should also be done regularly, periodically, so that one will have a clear understanding about, is that risk still valid? Is that risk is there still or not? What is the level of variations in terms of impact of the risk? So this clarity will be there, so that next organization or project manager can get ready to face those risks. If it is a negative risk, definitely you should have a mitigation or avoidance or acceptance, whatever the mitigation plan you have, to eliminate the negative impact of the risk when it occurs. If it is a positive risk, it's quite obvious one has to take the advantage of that. One has to enhance, exploit, share a positive risk so that organization is benefited. Further, procurement. So whenever a project is initiated, whenever a project is taken up, the organization who is doing the project cannot create everything, cannot develop everything in that project life cycle. So organization would take a decision, make a decision stating that some of the deliverables we make ourselves, some of the products we make ourselves, some of the products we purchase, some of the services we purchase. So to purchase, that has to happen from a specific supplier. You cannot go with every supplier. You should evaluate the suppliers, qualify the suppliers, and then select, onboard the supplier, and then get the services or products supplied by that particular supplier. So while doing this, one has to understand what type of contracting they need to enter with. So three types of contracts we speak basically. One is about cost plus contract, where cost is fully known to the project manager and to the organization. So apart from known cost, a fee will be paid to the supplier. Another one is fixed price, where project manager or the organization who is awarding that contract to a supplier will not know what is the cost. Instead, it is a fixed price. But important here is the scope of work needs to be clearly articulated and defined. Another type of contracting can be time and material, where the billing will happen based on the amount of time one is spent on that particular hire a resource or onboard a resource on a time and material basis, and what is that effort that resource has been put. Based on that, billing will happen. So three types of contracts depending on the different scenarios of the project will be signed with the contractor. However, before doing that, it is very essential to identify those suppliers, sign off with them, and monitor and manage them. So if deliverables are not there, it is very essential to look at the termination. One has to terminate. Otherwise, one has to ensure, instead of terminating, should be able to put some effort to educate them also, so that they come up to the mark, so project is benefited. So depending on what needs to be done, that call has to be taken on a regular basis. Then critical success factor. So for every project, there should be an articulation of critical success factor. So based on that, one can confirm Yes, project has achieved its objectives or project has not achieved its objectives. So critical success factor should be supported through the metrics, key performance indicators. So key performance indicators provide those metrics to say critical success factor is achieved. For example, if I want to become successful in an exam, critical success factor is scoring or passing the examination. Or let me say, to pass the examination, key performance indicator is scoring 60% and above. So critical success factor for me to get promoted is to pass in this particular exam. So to pass in this exam, minimum I should score is 60%. That is KPI. Passing in the exam, that is critical success factor. So how will I measure that success factor is KPI. So every project which it produces a specific product or services by using a specific resources, and each of these, the resources, the processes, the templates, the deliverables, all these needs to be measured on a continual basis. So there are critical success factors defined, and those are measured by defining KPIs to that critical success factors. So basically, critical success factor provides the insight towards what needs to be measured, and when you measure, what should be the focus. And to achieve those critical success factors, the indicator is key performance indicators. When you measure, yes, the moment you achieve that, your CSF is achieved. Next, deliverables. So deliverables are those which comes as an output of the project, right? It may be a product, it may be a service, it may be a result. So this refers to the output within the scope of a project. So there can be one or more deliverables within a single project. So these deliverables may be the items that are to be sent externally to a customer or a stakeholder. So every deliverable will have a defined scope, will have a defined specification. So those deliverables has to be measured, tested, and one has to confirm, yes, this deliverable is performing as we are intended to have the performance. Accordingly, the decision will happen. Should we accept this particular deliverable or not? If there is any deviation, that has to go back for correction. So that's the reason we have monitoring and control. All the control processes like control quality focused on the product state, whether it has achieved that results or not. Is that functional as needed or not? One has to ensure these deliverables has all those features and functionalities. Only then that can be handed over to the respective stakeholder, customer or operation, whoever the stakeholder it is. Next is work breakdown structure. So when we say work breakdown structure, when I look at a specific piece of product or services and have a bigger picture, I cannot even visualize the various different components, various different actions involved in achieving that bigger deliverable. So if I say a car, so I can think of a body external, I can think of a mirror on that body, I can think of a glass in the front, side as well as the back side, and also I can think of interiors like seat, then accelerator, steering, dashboard. All this I can visualize. But since I'm not a technology expert relating to car, can I visualize all those parts which are working inside for car to move, like engine, the battery assembly? I don't know what to say further. So all these can be visualized by an expert. So every product or services should be broken down into multiple pieces. I'm not saying go and break that product. I'm saying that product will have multiple components which are involved. Those needs to be segregated. For example, if I say cars exteriors, cars interior. So cars exteriors, external items you can see, whatever you visualize, body structure, mirror assembly, headlights, then tires. So likewise, whatever I can visualize, I will make it as a line items under the exterior. So under, for example, under a mirror I can speak about mirror glass, mirror cap, mirror pedestal, and mirror assembly where it moves, where you can move the mirror. So these are the various components involved in a mirror. So I need to ensure by breaking down the product into multiple levels, by decomposing it to multiple levels, I can able to visualize the product very clearly. What is there in detail. So once I have the details, I will articulate those. What is that particular work breakdown element is, product breakdown element is. Then I will look at what skills and capabilities required for that product, and I will assign the resources accordingly. So once activities, resources, everything is assigned, automatically this will become a work breakdown structure. Further, after creating a work breakdown structure, one will go and sequence the activity, look at sequencing will happen based on in what priority deliverable should happen, what order deliverable should happen. Then once the sequencing is done, it will be checked to see whether anything can be optimized. Anything can be done in such a way that smooth flow of the project can happen. There is no dependencies which will make project to delay. Like as the flow happens smoothly, so you would find the various techniques like critical path method, network diagramming, critical chain method. So all these are used. The floats of an activities are checked. Then leads and lags of the activities, the relationship between the activities. So accordingly, full visualization in terms of how the project will flow and how in what order the deliverables are happening can be easily visualized. So that is the reason first activity is to do the product breakdown, which would result in work breakdown structure. So those are the points till now whatever I mentioned are the basic understanding one should have about a project and project management. So as you deep dive into various best practices like PMP by PMI, Prince2 by Axelos, Scrum Master, Agile Scrum Master, similarly you have Certified Scrum Master, so many agile practices. So when you look at any of the best practices, that will tell you clearly articulate what should be the practice for you to adopt and adapt that practices so that your project can become successful. So any of those approach you touch upon, all those refers to these basic things. In the absence of these basic things, none of those best practices discusses the project management. Now typically in the industry, there are a lot of job roles to the project management which we have seen. So based on that, this information is captured here on